Protein is essential for recovery and adaptation, but most triathletes aren't sure how much they should be eating or when. In this video, we'll explore the science of protein intake, including new research that could change the way you approach post-workout nutrition. And if you're new here, then hey, my name's James. I'm a registered sport and exercise nutritionist. I work with amateur and pro triathletes to help them train and race better, recover faster, and do all of this in a healthy fashion. Today, we're going to go through a topic which generates a heck of a lot of confusion among athletes: protein intake. If you've ever wondered how much protein you actually need to optimize recovery and adaptation, you're not alone. Recommendations range wildly, from the government's recommended daily allowance of 0.8 grams of protein per kilo of body weight to some prominent figures suggesting up to 3 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how much protein you should be eating, when to eat it, and how to prioritize your intake for maximum benefits. To understand how much protein you need, we first need to understand what protein actually does in the body, specifically its role in muscle protein synthesis, or MPS. MPS is the process by which your body repairs and builds new muscle tissue after exercise. It's a crucial driver of adaptation, helping you to recover from your sessions, build strength, and improve endurance capacity. Every time you consume protein, your body breaks it down into amino acids, which are then used to stimulate MPS. The key takeaway here is that dietary protein is the foundation of recovery and adaptation. Without enough of it, your body can't fully repair itself or respond to the stress of training. However, the exact amount of protein you need to optimize this process depends on several factors, including your body weight, the type of training you're doing, and how frequently you're exercising. So let's address the big issue of the wildly varying protein recommendations that you've probably seen. On the one end of the spectrum, we have the government's recommended daily allowance of 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. Now, this is the absolute minimum needed to prevent deficiency in sedentary individuals. It's not even close to sufficient for athletes who are putting their bodies through stress regularly, i.e. exercising. On the other end, you might have heard claims that athletes need as much as 3 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day. Now, there's enough evidence to say that that isn't harmful for healthy individuals, but the truth is that most endurance athletes don't need anywhere near this much. The current consensus among sports nutrition researchers is that consuming between 1.4 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day is enough to maximize muscle protein synthesis and support recovery. For a 70 kilo athlete, this works out as 98 to 154 grams of protein per day. Now, what I usually suggest here is that if you aren't doing much training, you can be at the lower end of the spectrum. But if you're vegan, vegetarian, or have a particularly high training load, then you should aim towards the upper end of it. The high training load is actually a really interesting one, or at least it is if you're me. So we generally say that protein doesn't provide much energy during exercise, and that's true. It contributes to around 5 to 10%, with the rest coming from carbs and fat. And that 5 to 10% is getting metabolized or burned, so it's not available to be used in the body for processes like muscle protein synthesis. So if you train more, you'll burn more protein during exercise. So those with high training volumes will actually burn their way through more protein than those with lower training volumes. This is why I suggest those with the higher training load should definitely be aiming for that upper end of the range. And I could even see around 2.5 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day, so just outside the recommended limit, to account for this. It's just going to make sure that they're consuming enough protein to cover that extra amount of protein that's being burned for energy and ensure that they've got enough for adaptation and progress. This brings us to an interesting development in the research. For years, it was thought that the body could only use a limited amount of protein for MPS at any one time, with estimates up to about 40 grams per meal. However, one recent study suggested that there was no strict upper limit for the amount of protein that the body can use in the context of post-exercise recovery. In short, the researchers found that there was a greater and more prolonged anabolic response with MPS when someone consumed 100 grams of protein after exercise compared to 25 grams of protein. This doesn't mean that you should consume enormous amounts of protein in one go, but it does suggest that you could have more protein in your post-workout meal and it's not wasteful or harmful. In practical terms, this is great news for athletes who might prefer a larger meal after training or someone who struggles to hit their protein targets through smaller, more frequent meals. You could have more protein after training, and if that helps you to hit your total daily protein intake, then that's a really good use of it. Hey, just a quick one. If you're a triathlete who's struggling with your nutrition, whether your recovery seems like it sucks, you're not hitting your session goals, or you're constantly feeling knackered, then check out my free Ultimate Fueling Guide for Triathletes. Learn how to easily optimize what to eat before, during, and after training so that you can recover faster and feel stronger. Link is in the description and comments. It's totally free and it will help you turn nutrition from a struggle into a breeze. All right, back to it. And so now let's turn all of this science into a practical strategy that you can use. When it comes to protein intake, I like to follow a simple hierarchy that prioritizes what matters most. At the top of the hierarchy is your total daily protein intake. The most important thing is to ensure you're hitting the target range of 1.4 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight every day. This should be your primary focus because if you're not getting enough protein intake overall, the finer details like timing and spacing just won't matter as much. Next is your post-exercise protein intake. After a training session, aim for at least 25 grams of high-quality protein to stimulate MPS and kickstart recovery. This could come from a protein shake, a chicken breast, a portion of Greek yogurt, or plant-based options like tofu. Honestly, there are so many different options out there. As long as you're getting a good amount of protein here, that's fine. Finally, consider how you space your protein intake throughout the day. While total protein intake is king, there's some evidence to suggest that spreading your protein consumption across 3 to 4 meals can further enhance MPS. This might look like 30 grams of protein for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then some protein in other snacks throughout the day. Other aspects of protein intake, like the exact timing of meals and in some respect the amino acid profiles, are far less important for most endurance athletes. Focus on the big rocks first, and you'll be well on your way to optimizing your recovery and adaptation. So let's make this even more actionable with an example of how to structure your protein intake across a day. For a 70 kilo athlete aiming for 1.6 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, their daily target for protein intake would be 112 grams. So here's how this might look. Breakfast could be a bowl of oats made with milk, topped with Greek yogurt and a handful of nuts. Lunch could be a chicken wrap with salad. Post-workout, they could have a recovery shake with whey protein and a banana. They could have a snack of rice cakes with peanut butter, and dinner could be a portion of rice, tofu, and veg. This simple structure ensures you're hitting your target while still spreading your protein intake throughout the day. Protein intake is one of the most important aspects of a triathlete's diet, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Focus on the fundamentals, get into the right target range, prioritize a solid dose of protein after exercise, and aim to spread your intake across your meals. Like with most things, the key is consistency. If you can build these habits into your daily routine, you'll give your body the tools it needs to adapt, recover, and perform at its best. And while what you eat after a workout is important, so is fueling well beforehand, because that gives you the energy to actually do your sessions. And you can check out this video here for more information on this.